Yo, it's Coach Cuffy here, and I wanted to basically go over the main thing that I've learned from coaching Overwatch 2. It's been about a week, slightly less than a week, and what I want to go over here is the lane and space control theory. It's less about individual team strategy. This isn't the strategy that I'm getting my teams to run, so to speak, but it's more about the objective way that every single good Overwatch team right now plays the game. Now, I wrote this document earlier when I was sort of analyzing it myself, and it's a theory that I sort of came up with. Um, I guess I have general knowledge from other background theories that other coaches have, but it's something that I noticed and I sort of came up with this. So I'll maybe go into the theories that this is based off of when I get to that. But yes, so I start by writing down, unlike Overwatch 1, Overwatch 2 relies heavily on controlling areas of space. These areas include high ground and low ground, covering main choke sightlines, left flank or left wing, and right flank or right wing. I'll refer to them interchangeably. So basically what this statement means, you might disagree. You might say that Overwatch 1 relies heavily on controlling areas of space. You're not wrong. Space control was extremely important during Overwatch 1. Extremely important. In fact, it was like Korea, for example's main win condition. A lot of the time, like on Double Bubble, you see soft dives into just open space as opposed to actually engaging onto enemies. But I guess it follows a similar philosophy. I tried to come up with a strategy surrounding just open space and space control because I realized that when I'm playing ranked games, for example, I'm doing things that aren't really specific to a role, but it's enabling the team and it's enabling myself to do things in other departments basically. Although roles are labeled tank, damage, support, there are way more hidden roles, and I've come up summing. I basically come here and I'm summing up all of the hidden roles. Um, Basically, what I mean by this is tanks can have the job of damages, tanks can have the job of supports. If you really think about what supports do, especially if you go back on Overwatch 1, back in the day when Symmetra was a support character that did not heal, and then people thought, hang on a sec, that does not make sense. She's the only one. Either they have to make more support characters that don't heal, or they have to just change the role to make support all about healing. The fact of the matter is, tanks can support. Support, by definition of them having sim in the support category, you can obviously support as a tank by doing things like peeling, etc. That counts as support, indirect support. That's how I would mainly refer to it as anyway. Similarly, damage can support through pills, and damage can also tank. Tank, for example, taking baits, you'll need a comp that relies on high sustain, for example, and high heals and high focus. But it's more about the gameplay and the strategy itself as opposed to the set roles that they give you, is basically what I'm trying to say. The first of these roles are the controller. I didn't know whether or not to put the controller or the initiator above each other, just simply because they have very similar roles and typically they overlap. The controller is a person that looks to create more space, giving the team more potential for the team fight. I think a brilliant example of this is like a wrecking ball, right? Wrecking ball is there to set up, he's there to displace things, and he's there to take all of that space. People might say that the controller is every tank's job, but once again, you can create space like a, let's say, like a wrecking ball can on a Lucio character, just based on displacements and knocking people off of the high ground and seizing that high ground and thus having more potential for the fight. If I ever use the word space, I can also use it interchangeably with the word potential, because with more space, with more sightlines, with more areas of the map we can go to and infiltrate, gives us more potential and more options for the fight, because every single fight we need to use that map and the comp and everything else that we can use, alt economy, all of that, to our advantage basically. So controllers are basically the people that create space. Initiators are the people that take first engagement either in open space or onto the opponent. Oftentimes the controller is the initiator. For example, again, Wrecking Ball. Yes, he looks to create more space. He gives you that space. Does Wrecking Ball need to be the very first person to go in? Absolutely not. But the initiator is just the first person to go in. A lot of the time, team fights are more successful if a Wrecking Ball was to be the initiator. But even so, Overwatch 2 right now, Wrecking Ball isn't super huge in the meta. He's just a very good example of a good character for controlling and initiating. Now, next up is the gatekeeper role. That's the person whose sole purpose is to move into creative space and stop the enemy from reclaiming parts of the map. So obviously, when we reclaim space, a lot of the time a team will just rotate through the space. And obviously, yes, we're still in control of these areas of the map, sure, simply because they'll have to rotate through or around us to get back to that space. But a lot of the times, it is very helpful to have a character posted into areas of the map that we control just to either scout flankers because let's say a flanker was to get behind us on a certain map. Let's talk first point circuit royale. Once you pass the bridge, it's quite not easy but possible to get around on top of the bridge again if you're defending, even if the enemy team has already passed through that choke. Um, if you were to have like a Sojourn, for example, gatekeeping that bridge, he'll be able to duel the person trying to flank, and then they'll be able to, or less likely to take that map control and take that potential back for their team. Remember, space works for us in the exact same way that space works for them. If they get more parts of the map, if they manage to get a pincer angle on us, people behind us and people in front of us, that's more potential because that's potential for the pincer engagement. Um, Next up is the primary hunter. That's just our main source of damage. Obviously, I need to mention the damage dealers. That's the primary threat to the enemy team. Let's say we're running a six-man comp. Six-man was not a comp that it's not a comp that exists anymore simply because we only have five people. But let's say in a comp with Monkey, Reaper, Sombra, Lucio, Moira, the primary damage dealer is going to be the Reaper because the Reaper is the thing that will kill you out of that comp, out of everything, right? Sombra will either be the initiator or the role that I'm now going to speak about, which is the secondary hunter. That's the secondary threat. If we're against that very same comp that I just mentioned, we obviously have to be aware of the fact that they could get hacks off because you know for a fact now, once I am hacked, I'm going to be the primary target, I'm going to be the bait. So, yes, I don't know if I've already gone over this. I think I might have just done, but it's 11 p.m. and I'm very tired. But our secondary threat, oftentimes a character that hard counters an enemy character. Their job is solely to suppress the enemy. The reason why Sombra is a perfect example for this is because her kit counters everyone. She has now got one of the best stuns in the game um, that literally disables you. Yes, their job is solely to suppress the enemy, and the reason why this is worded extremely loosely is because let's say there's also a Tracer mirror. Tracer would be the secondary hunter. Yes, she's a big threat. She is a big threat. But at the same time, if it's a Tracer mirror, a lot of the time you'll see the Tracers dueling each other, and that's basically because if they're fighting each other, the enemy Tracer can't get onto my core, they can't get onto my bait. It's funny that we now move on to cleanup. I'm not even doing this deliberately because I'm not doing this deliberately, but once again I've just mentioned Tracer, and Tracer is also another great character for cleaning up. Um, Cleanup characters are the ones that assist towards the end of engagement and secure kills. The reason why I say this as a separate role, and people might argue that hang on a sec, everyone is able to clean up, which is not technically wrong. But a lot of the time, it is good to have set people or people that are most able to clean up to do that cleanup, just solely based on the fact that it won't disable us from setting up for the next upcoming fight. A lot of the time towards the end of fights, you'll see a lot of teams stacking and engaging onto the last couple of enemies together, which is fine, is viable. But Tracer is a good character for just securing kills because she's fast and she can reposition. Um, I think that goes without saying. I think that's pretty clear. Finally, there is the core or the bait, which is the primary source of heals for our team. In my opinion, in Overwatch 2, their main role is simply to prolong the fight. In my opinion, the flex support always dies, especially if we're running Ana or BAP. Um, or Zen or Kiriko because Kiriko seems to be a flex support, but she's a hybrid main support. Flex support is very strange because you can play her very peely, you can play her very mechanically, let's say. But yes, the core, the bait, the reason why I use these interchangeably is because yes, we can strategically place our Ana or our flex support in a way in which they will die. Um, but they'll get as much value as possible. Let's say they keep up their monkey for just as long enough to get a pick on the Ana, and now we've had like 5 seconds extra on them where our flex support was up and theirs was dead. And through that, we can actually get more picks by the time our Ana dies. Um, Again, I think there's actually a lot less reason to peel in this game. Because, like I said, the Ana always seems to die. I would much rather have our Lucio insing onto their backline whilst they're on our Ana as opposed for our Lucio to be trying to speed them away or heal them away when they literally got 4 people and a lack of an off tank on their backline. I just think it makes more sense for Lucio to be doing something slightly more proactive than peeling. And remember that all of these claims are coming from me at a time where tank picks are fairly loose. You can pretty much play anyone, but right now we're playing a lot of Zarya. You see a fair few Orisas, and you see a lot of monkeys and a lot of divas. Those seem to be the strongest tanks, and obviously Junker Queen is always going to be busted just because her kit is busted. Um, but yes, these hypothetical roles work in a pivot. For example, when I play Lucio, pre-fight I am the initiator. I speed onto the enemy, and then mid-fight I am the gatekeeper holding all the space that we claim. Post-fight I become the cleanup because I'm able to quickly chase after people. I can assist the dives for the remaining kills and then also get back into the position for the next fight. Setup is extremely important, extremely important. You need to make sure you put yourself in a position where the fight is winnable by the time you go into the next one. Similarly, a Widowmaker pre-fight is the secondary hunter. This is solely because she controls everything in her sightline. Yes, this is not the same description as what I used before, but my logic is, in maps that we have Widow, both teams will most likely run something sightline based, so the enemy will probably have an Ashe or a Widow or a Hanzo. And as you can see, secondary hunter is all about suppressing the enemy. So Widowmaker will initially be looking for the person that has the sightline damage on the enemy team and just suppressing their capability, let's say. Once we get the pick, she becomes a primary hunter. I missed out the fact that whilst Widowmaker is also a secondary hunter, she is also a gatekeeper. Gatekeeper controlling space because she's LOS based once again. She stops everyone from walking in front of her because if they walk in front of her, she will kill them if you're good enough. Mid fight, she becomes a primary hunter as she's the main thing the enemies fear. Post fight, she reverts back to a game gatekeeper, and once again, this goes back to the cyclical structure of Overwatch, where is pre-fight. There's a setup. There's lots of poke. Um, Mid fight there's lots of brawl, and then post fight there's a cleanup and a reset up. That's the best structure for team fights right now anyway. I will also like to say, because all of this is the case, there's a lot more emphasis on team comps. Teams are very hybrid based. Standard brawl. Let's say a standard brawl comp right now will have like a Junk Queen, a Sojourn, a let's say a Genji, And you know what? For Sojourn, I'll even say slash Sombra, and then a Lucio, and then a lot of the times you'll see like a Brig or a Anna, but just to drive home my point, I'll say an Anna. As you can see here, this is a comp with Brawl capability in the Junker Queen, poke capability in the Sojourn, dive capability in the Sombra, dive capability in the Genji, brawl capability slash dive capability on the Lucio, poke slash dive capability on the Anna. Obviously, Anna's utility is not for dive, but Anna's utility assists Genji and people like that in the dive, right? It's interesting because that is regarded as a brawl comp, but really it's not, is it? It's a complete hybrid. It's a complete hybrid of all three different types of playstyles, and this is why I think that people need to put more emphasis on pre-fight, mid-fight, and post-fight. Like I said before, pre-fight includes a lot of poke, mid-fight includes a lot of brawl, and post-fight includes a lot of cleanup. And you know what's cleanup? A lot of the time it's very close range, we're chasing after them, which is basically a brawl. But in this comp, if we were to assign roles, which I think is a brilliant idea, I wasn't planning on doing, but now, Jungle Queen would most likely have a Initiator Gatekeeper role. Initiator slash Gatekeeper. Sojourn, what would she have? She would have a very Gatekeeper-esque, um, maybe even primary damage. And then Sombra would have more of a secondary damage. Um, Secondary damage. Yeah, let's just go with that. Once again, you can use every single one of these things very loosely, but I'm thinking about the most logical. And then Genji would also be, let's call him a secondary damage, just based on the fact that we might also be running a Sojourn. So let's say secondary damage slash cleanup, because you know that he will want to be cleaning up. And then Lucio is also an initiator, gatekeeper, cleanup. Lucio is very loose, and this is why Lucio is extremely strong right now. Let's say also a part of the core in some comps, because let's say we're running the Brig. I wouldn't ever describe Lucio as a bait just because his survivability is way too high. Creates more space. I guess Lucio could even be a controller. You've seen how strong Lucio is right now. And then there's the Anna. Anna is obviously a part of the core. And to an extent, she is a gatekeeper because she would like to set up, and she's got very good utility for prolonging fights. Like I said, she can definitely steep something. She can definitely get a nade and force people back. So she is decent at holding space. Fair enough. Um, but yeah, hopefully this was a good example of how you guys can sort of start thinking. In my opinion, every single one of these characters in the entire game can fit into any one of these roles. You just have to figure out what roles your teammates are sort of picking up and doing naturally and sort of having to fill in. That's the key to climbing right now. And I know people are gonna mock it in the comments if people do watch it from the Overwatch community, because I have been complaining on Twitter that I went like 14-3 in my own games, and now I'm going like 23-35 or something like that. But yeah, this is what I've been doing on the Lucio, pretty much what I highlighted there. But I hope that all of that is very well explained, and I might do some analyses with all of this in mind, watching like VOD reviews and labeling what roles people are basically doing and stuff like that.